Mastering yourself in a world of temptation. Have you ever felt like, no matter how hard you try to stay focused, something always pulls you away? A notification, a craving, a distraction, a moment of weakness. We live in a world where temptation is no longer rare, it is constant. It follows you, surrounds you, and quietly shapes your habits without you even noticing. And the more you give in, the harder it becomes to resist the next time. The Stoics understood something powerful. The greatest threat to your life is not the chaos of the world, but the lack of control within yourself. Because when you cannot master your impulses, you become controlled by them. But when you learn to master yourself, you gain something rare: clarity, discipline, and inner freedom. In this reflection, we will explore how to master yourself in a world full of temptation, and how Stoic wisdom can help you reclaim control over your mind, your habits, and your life. Part 1. Temptation is constant. The Stoics lived in a different world, but the nature of temptation has always been the same. It simply changes form. Today, temptation is no longer something you occasionally face, it is something you carry with you. In your phone, in your routines, in your thoughts. It is always available, always waiting, always inviting you to choose what is easy over what is right. And because it is so accessible, it feels normal. You no longer question it, you simply follow it. But the Stoics would remind you of something important. Just because something is available does not mean it should control you. Temptation itself is not the problem. The problem is how quickly you surrender to it. Mastery begins when you stop living on impulse and start living with intention. Part 2. The mind seeks comfort by default. The human mind is not naturally disciplined. It is naturally drawn toward comfort. It avoids effort. It seeks pleasure. It resists discomfort. This is why temptation feels so powerful. It aligns with your default state. It offers relief without effort. It promises satisfaction without struggle. But what feels good in the moment often weakens you over time. The Stoics understood that if you allow your mind to follow its natural tendency, it will lead you toward distraction, indulgence, and dependency. This is why they trained themselves. Because without discipline, the mind does not lead you toward growth. It leads you toward comfort. And comfort, when unchecked, slowly erodes your strength. Part 3. You become a slave to what you cannot resist. Every time you give in to an impulse without thought, you reinforce a pattern. At first, it feels small, harmless, temporary. But repetition turns actions into habits, and habits shape identity. The Stoics believed that the person who cannot resist their urges is not free, even if they believe they are. Because freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is not being controlled by what you want. If you cannot say no to yourself, then your life is not guided by choice. It is guided by impulse. And that is a quiet form of slavery. Part 4. Awareness is the first step to control. Most people do not realize how often they are acting on autopilot. They reach for their phone without thinking. They distract themselves without noticing. They avoid discomfort without questioning why. The Stoics trained themselves to observe their own behavior. They paid attention to their thoughts. They noticed their impulses. They questioned their reactions. Because awareness creates distance. And in that distance, you gain the ability to choose. You cannot control what you do not see, but once you become aware, you begin to reclaim power. Part 5. Delay weakens temptation. Temptation thrives on immediacy. It urges you to act now, to respond now, to indulge now. But the Stoics practiced something simple and powerful. They delayed. They did not immediately react to every urge. They paused. They waited. They observed. And in that pause, something changed. The intensity of the desire began to fade. The urgency lost its grip. Because most temptations are not as strong as they feel, they are simply unchallenged. When you delay, you interrupt the cycle. And in that interruption, you regain control. Part 6. You are not your urges. One of the most important Stoic insights is this: your impulses are not your identity. You may feel the urge to avoid work. You may feel the desire to escape discomfort. You may feel drawn toward distraction. But feeling something does not mean you must act on it. The Stoic creates separation between impulse and action. They observe the urge without becoming it. They experience the feeling without surrendering to it. And in doing so, they realize something powerful. You are not your cravings. You are the one who decides whether to follow them. Part 7. Comfort slowly weakens you. Comfort is not dangerous in a single moment. It becomes dangerous when it becomes a pattern. Every time you choose ease over effort, you reinforce a version of yourself that avoids challenge. Over time, this weakens your discipline. It lowers your tolerance for discomfort. It makes even small struggles feel overwhelming. The Stoics understood that growth requires friction. They did not chase comfort. They trained themselves to endure discomfort willingly. Because they knew that strength is not built in ease, it is built in resistance. Part 8. Discipline must be practiced daily. Self-mastery is not a one-time decision, it is a daily practice. You do not become disciplined once and remain that way forever. Each day presents new temptations. Each moment presents new choices. The Stoics treated discipline like a muscle. They strengthened it through repetition. They practiced restraint. They reflected on their actions. Because consistency, not intensity, is what creates lasting control. Part 9. Your habits are shaping your future. You may not notice it, but your daily actions are quietly shaping who you are becoming. The small decisions you make today will define your life tomorrow. Every time you give in, you reinforce that behavior. Every time you resist, you strengthen your discipline. The Stoics focused on these small moments. They understood that greatness is not built through occasional effort, but through repeated action. You are always becoming something. The only question is whether you are becoming what you intend. Part 10. Guard your attention. Your attention is one of your most valuable resources. Where it goes, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your life moves. The modern world is designed to capture your attention. Endless content, constant stimulation, continuous distraction. The Stoic protects their attention carefully. They choose what they focus on. They avoid unnecessary noise. They remain intentional. Because if you do not control your attention, something else will. Part 11. Saying no is a form of power. Many people struggle with discipline because they struggle to say no. No to distractions, no to impulses, no to immediate comfort. But every no strengthens your control. The Stoics understood that restraint is not weakness, it is power. It is the ability to deny what feels good now in favor of what is better later. And the more you practice saying no, the easier it becomes to choose what truly matters. Part 12. Standards create stability. Without clear standards, your behavior becomes unpredictable. You act based on mood. You react based on impulse. But when you define your standards, something changes. You no longer negotiate with temptation, you follow your principles. The Stoic does not ask, "What do I feel like doing?" They ask, "What is the right thing to do?" And that question creates consistency, clarity, and strength. Part 13. Responsibility cannot be avoided. It is easy to blame the world for your lack of discipline, the distractions, the environment, the pressure. But Stoicism removes excuses. You are responsible for your actions. You are responsible for your habits. You are responsible for your life. Even in a world full of temptation, your response is still yours to choose, and that is where your power lies. Part 14. Strength is built in small decisions. Self-mastery is not built in dramatic moments, it is built in quiet decisions. Choosing focus when distracted, choosing effort when tired, choosing discipline when tempted. These small choices may seem insignificant, but over time, they define you. The Stoics understood that greatness is not loud. It is built silently, one decision at a time. Part 15. Master yourself, master your life. At the core of Stoicism is a simple truth. If you cannot control yourself, you cannot control anything else. But when you master your thoughts, your impulses, and your habits, something powerful happens. You become steady, you become clear, you become free. The world may remain full of temptation, distractions may never disappear, but you will no longer be controlled by them, and that is the foundation of true strength. Part 16. Stop negotiating with temptation. One of the most subtle ways temptation wins is through negotiation. You tell yourself, just this once. I'll stop after this. I deserve a break. And in that moment, you are not making a decision, you are making an exception. The Stoics understood that every exception weakens discipline. Because when you negotiate with temptation, you are already halfway to surrender. True self-mastery comes from clarity, not compromise. You decide once what kind of person you are, and you act accordingly. Not based on mood, not based on convenience, but based on principle. The less you negotiate, the stronger you become. Part 18. Motivation is unreliable. Many people wait until they feel motivated before they act. But motivation is temporary. It comes and goes without warning. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you will feel tired, distracted, and unmotivated. If you depend on motivation, your discipline will be inconsistent. The Stoics did not rely on feeling ready. They relied on commitment. They acted because it was the right thing to do, not because they felt like doing it. And that is what separates those who improve from those who remain stuck. Discipline continues where motivation fades. Part 19. Learn to sit with discomfort. Most people are not controlled by temptation itself, but by their inability to tolerate discomfort. Boredom feels uncomfortable, effort feels uncomfortable, silence feels uncomfortable. So they escape. They reach for distraction, not because they need it, but because they cannot sit with the feeling of unease. The Stoics trained themselves differently. They stayed with discomfort. They observed it without reacting. They allowed it to exist without trying to remove it immediately. And over time, something changed. Discomfort lost its power. Because what you can tolerate, you are no longer controlled by. Part 20. True power is inner control. At the end of it all, Stoicism points to one truth. The greatest form of power is not external, it is internal. It is not about controlling people. It is not about controlling outcomes. It is about controlling yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your impulses. Because when you can remain steady in a world that pulls in every direction, you become unshakable. Temptation may still exist, distraction may still surround you, but they no longer define you, because you have learned to master the one thing that matters most, yourself. Part 21. Simplicity strengthens the mind. The more complex your life becomes, the easier it is to lose control. Too many choices, too many distractions, too many things competing for your attention. The Stoics valued simplicity, not because they rejected life, but because they understood clarity. When you simplify your routines, your environment, and your habits, you remove unnecessary temptation. You reduce noise, you increase focus, you strengthen discipline. A complicated life invites distraction. A simple life supports control. Part 22. Repetition builds identity. Every action you repeat becomes part of who you are. Not in one day, not in one moment, but over time. The Stoics understood that identity is not something you declare, it is something you build. If you repeatedly give in to temptation, you become someone who lacks control. If you repeatedly choose discipline, you become someone who embodies strength. You are always reinforcing something. The question is, what version of yourself are you building each day? Part 23. Guard your energy carefully. Temptation does not only take your time, it takes your energy. Every distraction drains focus. Every impulse weakens intention. Every moment of indulgence pulls you away from your purpose. The Stoic treats energy as something valuable. They do not waste it carelessly. They do not give it to everything that demands attention. They choose where it goes. Because once your energy is scattered, your direction becomes unclear. And without direction, discipline fades. Part 24. You must become your own authority. Many people lack discipline because they rely on external control, deadlines, rules, expectations from others. But when those disappear, so does their structure. The Stoic becomes self-governed. They do not need constant supervision. They do not need pressure to act. They hold themselves accountable. They become their own authority. Because true self-mastery is not about being controlled by the outside. It is about building control from within. In a world filled with temptation, it is easy to lose yourself, to drift, to react, to follow whatever feels easiest in the moment. But you were not meant to live that way. You were meant to be aware, to be disciplined, to be in control of your own life. Every moment offers a choice, to give in or to rise above, to follow impulse or to act with intention. And the more you choose discipline, the more you return to yourself. Because self-mastery is not about perfection, it is about direction. It is about becoming stronger, one decision at a time. So the next time temptation appears, pause. Remember who you are becoming and choose wisely. Because the person who masters themselves masters everything.